Association.
Thank you, Rob. I also, like everyone else here, want to thank you all for coming out. This is a very important issue to stand up for, and I'm glad to see you out here. And I'm an emergency room physician, and it's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today on behalf of the Christian Medical and Dental Associations. We're all here today because of the mandate of the Department of Health and Human Services that essentially all employee health plans, even those of institutions with religious convictions, provide contraception, sterilization, and abortion, and the like coverage for their employees. All of us here today understand the importance of the principle of the sanctity of life. And we're here to stand up for religious freedom and for the integrity of our healthcare system. As physicians and dentists, the members of CMDA understand how vitally important this is. I want to read to you a quote from Margaret Mead. If any of you know who Margaret Mead is, she was definitely no champion of traditional morality. But she did understand the importance of maintaining the integrity of healthcare system. She said, quote, "Society always is attempting to make the physician into a killer, to kill the defective child at birth, to leave the sleeping pills beside the bed of the cancer patient. It is the duty of society to protect the physician from all such requests," unquote. Indeed, it is imperative that everyone involved in healthcare be protected from having to do things that they know are wrong. Here's another quote from Linda Rankin, who's a bioethicist at the University of Tennessee. This is something she said back in 2004. Quote, "If we do not protect personal integrity, we would go down a dangerous avenue. By taking a professional license, you do not step out of your personal morality. You have taken on an additional responsibility, but that does not mean you have given up your integrity as a person." Unquote. What these ladies have understood is that physicians, and this applies to everyone in healthcare, not just the physicians, but the nurses, pharmacists, and the healthcare plan administrators, we absolutely must not train our doctors, nurses, and pharmacists to learn that it's okay to ignore their conscience. Because in healthcare we have great power over life and death, and if we ignore our conscience, and we've seen the consequences of that in history in not so recent past in Nazi Germany. That's a lot of the killers in Nazi Germany they started out with the physicians. And a lot of people were doing what they did because they did not follow their conscience. They did not do what they knew was the right thing to do. Doctors do hold the power to kill as well as heal. And throughout history, it has not been uncommon that going to the doctor was a scary thing. Most of you are probably thinking going to the doctor is a scary thing anyway. But it's even more scary if you can't trust your doctor. And it's not just scary because you're sick, but because of the real possibility that someone else is paying more for your death than you're paying for your life. Throughout the history of the world, that's been a real issue in many different places. But today, missionary friends of mine in Africa know that when Africans go to a medicine man or a witch doctor, those people have real power, but they don't know that they're going to help them. So having integrity and knowing that your doctor's going to stand up for that is very important. Fortunately, in our modern culture, we've enjoyed a morality handed down to us from the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates, and more importantly, our Judeo-Christian heritage, both of which stress the importance of the sanctity of life and the duty of physicians to their patients. Unfortunately, there are many people who would have us, or would love to see that the moral heritage that we have would just pass away, but we must not let that happen. Fortunately, we also have a legal and political heritage in this country which is on our side. And some of the previous speakers are much more qualified than I am to speak about this, but there's some very important things I think to reinforce. The First Amendment to the Bill of Rights says, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." I think we need to stress the context in which that was written and the understanding that our founding fathers had of that. So here are several quotes from James Madison, who's known as the father of the Constitution, in which he stresses the importance of conscience. He says, quote, "Nor shall the full and equal rights of conscience be in any manner or any pretext infringed." Again, he says, conscience is the most sacred of all property. And again, the religion of every man must be left to the conviction and conscience of every man, and it is the right of every man to exercise it as these may dictate. Finally, in relation to the First Amendment, here's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. Quote, "The rights of conscience we never submitted. We could not submit. We are answerable for them to our God." As you can see, the founders of our country have given us freedom of religion, among other freedoms, and with that, the freedom to live and act in agreement with our consciences. As physicians, we must demand this right, and as patients, we must demand that our physicians be allowed to maintain their moral integrity. I speak here, of course, as a physician, but the same principle applies to the institutions that are providing the health care coverage, and the pharmacists, nurses, and everybody else that's carrying out that health care. And in review, up to this point, I've tried to stress two main things. One, it is dangerous to instruct doctors to violate their moral integrity. And two, we cannot and should not be expected to give up our moral integrity based on the protections given to us in the Constitution. And as you heard earlier, the Declaration of Independence, it says that we are endowed by our Creator with these unalienable rights. And we need to remember that. And here are some things I think that we can all do to help stop this Health and Human Services mandate. Number one, exercise our freedoms under the First Amendment as we are here today. Give our money and our votes to politicians committed to the integrity of the healthcare system. Encourage our leaders in the medical field and in our churches not to back down, but to maintain their integrity. And pray for our leaders, both those with whom we agree and with whom we disagree, that they may come to understand better what's happening. And also to maintain our own awareness and stay involved in the process. That's why we're really glad to see everybody out here today. Two resources I'd like to pass on to you, just two websites, in addition to the standupforfreedom.com website. There's freedom2care.org. It's freedom and then the number 2care.org. And consciencelaws.org talks about not just this law, but any there's state laws and other laws in the country and around the world where the right to conscience is being threatened. And they have information on that there. And finally, on a personal note, as an ER doctor, this HHS mandate could affect my practice of medicine. I do not prescribe contraception in the emergency room. Occasionally I am asked to prescribe emergency contraception, which I am against and which I refuse to prescribe. Me? Well, at this point, I'm not a legal expert. I don't think this applies to my practice in the ER directly right now, but I know that if we don't stop this now, that's the next step, is directly telling the doctors what they are and are not going to do. And if it comes down to it, and I'm required to prescribe emergency contraception, I will not. I will stop practicing medicine. Closing, I just want to say thank you for coming out. It's been a pleasure to be able to speak with you. On behalf of the Christian Medical and Dental Associations, God bless you. And in closing, I just want to repeat that quote from Thomas Jefferson. The rights of conscience we never submitted, we could not submit. We are answerable for them to our God.